Hi, this is your host with the Asian American history for February. And today we are going to talk about Anna May Wong. For those of you who don't know about her, she was an actress. She was the first Chinese American movie star and one of the most popular stars of the 1920s and 30s. While she was of Chinese descent, she was born and raised in the United States and was considered a third-generation American. Her parents, they immigrated to the U.S. from China around the turn of the century during the height of the gold rush when many Chinese men, they sought their fortunes in the gold mines of California. But while some found riches, others were forced into a life of crime. Wong was born Wong Liu-tsang in Los Angeles on January 3, 1905. Her given name, it means beautiful, lovely, good and correct. But her father always called her May, a nickname that stuck and she used it professionally throughout her life. She was given the name Anna by the family's American doctor at birth because he thought her Chinese name too difficult to pronounce. She later added May to her name and made Anna May her stage name when she was 14 years old. She was the second of 7 children of her parents Sam Singh and Gon Toi Lee, who were both California natives. They lived in a 3-room house with a courtyard in the middle. It was a typical southern Chinese home, a far cry from the mansions inhabited by the Chinese elite in America. Her mother, she came to the U.S. in 1901 and married Sam Wong in 1903. He had come to the U.S. several years before that. When May was born, her father was a cook and he had worked his way up to become the owner of a laundry business, so the family wasn't rich but they weren't poor either. She had an older sister and 5 younger brothers and sisters. When Wong was young, she would often work in her family's laundry business after school, doing chores such as ironing, folding and delivering clothes. Despite their modest income, the Wongs provided their children with a good education. They knew the value of literacy and learning and wanted their children to have every opportunity to succeed. As a result, all 7 Wong children graduated from high school and several went on to college. In fact, her brother, Philip, he became a professor of literature at Pomona College. As a child, Anna May Wong developed a passion for theater and began performing in amateur productions with her sister and friends. When she was 14 years old, she landed a small role in a Chinese production of A Christmas Carol and she decided to use the stage name Anna May. After graduating from high school in 1922, Wong enrolled in a secretarial program at the University of California, Los Angeles. But she soon dropped out to pursue an acting career. She moved to New York City and began taking acting lessons. And in 1924, she returned to Los Angeles to try out for a part in the silent film The Thief of Baghdad. She did not get that role, but her performance impressed the film's director, Raoul Walsh, who cast her in a bit part in the film. This marked the beginning of Wong's Hollywood career. In 1926, she landed a larger role in the film The Red Lantern, which was set in the time of the Boxer Rebellion. The film was a success and it established Wong as a leading lady in Hollywood. Over the next few years, she appeared in a number of other films, including The Circle of 1928, Daughter of the Dragon and Shanghai Express, which co-starred Marlene Dietrich and Joseph von Sternberg. In 1930, Wong starred in the film Disraeli, playing the role of Mrs. Disraeli's maid. The film was a critical and commercial success and it solidified Wong's reputation as a talented actress. However, despite her success in Hollywood, Wong remained largely unknown to the general public. This was partly due to the fact that she chose not to capitalize on her fame. And like many of her contemporaries, she did not endorse products or appear in public service announcements and she was rarely interviewed by the press. As a result, much of her personal life remained private, and her fans were left to speculate about her off-screen persona. During the early 1930s, Wong's career began to decline as the Great Depression led to a decrease in film production. Additionally, the introduction of sound in movies led to a shift in demand for Asian actors, which resulted in fewer opportunities for Wong and other Asian American performers. Despite this, Wong continued to work steadily throughout the decade, appearing in a number of low-budget films. She also began performing on the stage. which allowed her to showcase her versatility as an actress. In 1934, Wong starred in the Broadway production of The Most Happy Girl in the World and received positive reviews for her performance. She continued to work in theater throughout the late 1930s and early 1940s, appearing in productions such as The Taming of the Shrew, The Lady of the Camellias, and A Streetcar Named Desire. During World War II, Wong took a break from acting to serve in the U.S. Army. She worked in the entertainment division of the Army's Special Services, traveling to various military bases to perform for troops. After the war, Wong returned to Hollywood and began working in television. She appeared in numerous TV shows, including The Virginian, Bonanza, The Big Valley, and The Streets of San Francisco. She also continued to work in theater, appearing in productions such as Flower Drum Song and The King and I. Throughout her career, Wong was a trailblazer for Asian American actors. She faced racism and discrimination, but she refused to be typecast, and she fought for better roles and higher pay. Her dedication to her craft and her determination to succeed paved the way for future generations of Asian American actors. After more than 30 years in the entertainment industry, Wong retired from acting in 1960. She spent her later years traveling and writing. She died on February 3, 1993, at the age of 88. She left behind a legacy that continues to inspire Asian Americans and entertainers around the world. We're used to hearing about the plight of the Chinese Exclusion Act these days, but life for Chinese Americans wasn't necessarily any easier once the law was repealed. In fact, even after the 1940s, Chinese immigrants still faced a lot of discrimination and sometimes outright hostility. Take, for example, the story of actress Anna May Wong. Hi, everyone. Today we are going to look at the story of Anna May Wong, the Chinese-American actress who became Hollywood's first big movie star despite suffering from extreme racism. Make sure to stick around until the end to hear about the most offensive thing Anna May Wong's classmates did to her. May Wong was born in Los Angeles in 1905, the daughter of Chinese immigrants Bing and Li May Wong. Her father worked as a laundryman, and the family lived in a small house in the city's Chinatown. When she was just 2 years old, he bought her a picture book about Snow White, which sparked her love for storytelling. And when she grew up, she wanted to be an actress. While growing up, Wong and her siblings attended a predominantly white public school in California. But she and her brother didn't last long. According to her memoirs, they were constantly bullied and harassed by their classmates, and the teachers didn't do anything to stop it. In The True Life of a Chinese Girl, a 3-part memoir published by Pictures magazine in 1926, she recalled one particularly harrowing incident in detail. They surrounded us. Some of them pulled our hair, which we wore in long braids down our backs. They shoved us off the sidewalk, pushing us this way and that, she wrote, adding that the students also chanted racist slurs during the attack. I don't suppose either of us ever cried so hard in our lives, before or since. After this incident, Wong's parents decided to take her and her brother out of the school and enroll them in the Chains, a mission school in L.A.'s Chinatown, which had a predominantly Chinese student body. There she learned to speak Chinese, though she spoke it with an accent because of her upbringing. As a teenager, Wong got involved in theater, performing in a number of productions in Chinatown. She made the transition to Hollywood in 1923 and landed bit parts in silent films such as The Thief of Baghdad and Daughter of the Dragon. Although she was billed as Anna May Wong in some of her early roles, she soon changed her name to just Anna May, dropping her first name because she found it too Chinese. In the mid-1920s, Wong appeared in several films based on stories by Pearl S. Buck, the daughter of missionaries in China. Buck's work often portrayed Chinese characters in a favorable light, and many critics praised Wong for her performances. However, outside of these films, Wong struggled to find roles and she was often pigeonholed into playing villains. Furthermore, many of the parts that were written for her required her to wear yellow face makeup. At the time, it was common practice for non-Asian actors to wear makeup that was intended to make them look Asian. Despite this, Wong was becoming increasingly well-known and had a fairly comfortable life. Even by 1930s standards, she drove a 68 horsepower V12 Duesenberg. In her autobiography, she recalled how people would call her a chink and tell her to go back to where she came from, even though she was born in the US. One time she was invited to a party by her friend Dolores Del Rio, only to have Del Rio's mother tell her not to come because she was Chinese. "If I should meet your mother," Wong wrote, "she would probably say to me, 'You are not welcome here. You and your kind are not wanted.'" After trying to stay afloat in America, Wong decided to try her luck in Europe. In the late 1930s, she appeared in a number of British and French films, including the British film The Man Who Would Be King. During this time, she traveled all over Europe, living in Paris, London, Rome and Shanghai, traveling in style and mixing with celebrities and royalty. When World War II broke out, Wong returned to the United States and married British actor and director Richard Barton. Then in 1943, she starred in the film The Shanghai Gesture, playing the role of a Chinese noblewoman named Gay Yen. This was her breakthrough role and established her as a major star. Unfortunately, she became ill during filming after contracting tuberculosis and had to spend a year recuperating. In 1944, Wong was offered a role in the film The Mask of Demetrios. She was excited to play a character who wasn't Chinese for once. But the studio heads wouldn't allow her to dye her hair black to play the part, so she turned it down. Around this time, her marriage began to fall apart and she separated from her husband. She moved to New York City and enrolled in an acting class taught by the legendary Lee Strasberg, who was a founder of the method acting movement. For the next few years, Wong performed in live theater, appearing in several Broadway productions. In the late 1940s, she starred in the Golden Theater production of the play The Rose Tattoo, alongside the likes of Eli Wallach and Maureen Stapleton. The show ran for 516 performances and earned Wong rave reviews. A reviewer from the New York Times called her performance unforgettable. Her portrait of Serafina is one of the most impressive pieces of acting seen here in a long time. From the moment Miss Wong first appears on the stage, she dominates it. Her face, with its mobile and expressive features, tells the story of Serafina's turbulent soul. Her voice, rich and resonant, speaks both of the drab tragedy of the woman's life and the sudden flare of passion within her. However, although Wong was succeeding on stage, her personal life was still in turmoil. She was struggling to get through a messy divorce and her health was deteriorating. Despite this, she continued to work, appearing in the television series The United States Steeler in 1956 and the film The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad in 1958. On May 3, 1961, Wong died of a cerebral hemorrhage at the age of 56. She was buried in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. When she passed away, the New York Times ran a lengthy obituary, calling her one of the most talented actresses of her generation, and praising her for helping to break down racial barriers in Hollywood. Well, now you know all about Anna May Wong's acting career and her efforts to help break down racial barriers in Hollywood. But what do you think? What was the most offensive thing her classmates did to her? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed learning about this important figure in history. If you did, make sure to check out our other videos on similar topics. Thanks for watching. Have you ever heard of Anna May Wong? Well, if you haven't, you're not alone. Most people have never heard of her, but she might be the most famous Chinese American ever. And her story is so fascinating. She was born in 1905 to Chinese immigrant parents in Los Angeles and was the first Chinese American movie star. She was even nominated for an Actress of the Year award in 1934. However, there's a weird footnote with that accomplishment. You see, in 1934, there were 2 Actresses of the Year nominees, one white and one Chinese. But don't worry, because I'm gonna tell you all about them and how this happened. But also stick around to find out what famous awards she won. Before we get into it though, please hit that like button for more videos about Asian Americans. So, Anna May Wong started acting at age 14 in 1919 and really shot to fame in Hollywood during the 1920s. But there was a little problem. In 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which prohibited the immigration of Chinese laborers for 10 years. It was the first significant law to restrict immigration based on race, and was a big step towards the U.S. stop becoming colorblind. Just kidding. The law was extended several times and wasn't officially repealed until 1943 with the Magnuson Act. That's right. For over 60 years, the U.S. did not allow any Chinese laborers to enter the country. Because of this act, all Chinese residents in the United States had to carry certificates of identity issued by the government. The certificates included a photograph and identifying information such as fingerprints and place of birth. These certificates were renewed every 2 years and were required to be carried at all times. To quote directly from the U.S. government at the time, the carrying of the certificate is not for the purpose of identification, but is a reminder of the bearer's status as an alien and of the obligation to report in person at the nearest immigration station upon leaving any vessel after a trip abroad. So basically they wanted to remind everyone who was Chinese that they weren't quite American, even if they were born here. But despite this, Anna May Wong became a huge movie star in Hollywood. But here's where things get weird. Since Anna May Wong was half Chinese and half white, she was able to pass as white and didn't have to carry one of these certificates or experience the othering that many Asian Americans experienced during this period. However, some people aren't too happy that she didn't have to go through this and felt that she should have done more to help the cause. But you know, she was just an actress, right? It's not like she could have changed the law or anything. But while she didn't have to carry a certificate of identity, she did face discrimination in other ways. For example, she was often typecast as playing a dragon lady or a femme fatale, a seductive and dangerous woman who uses her sexuality to get what she wants. This was a common trope in Hollywood at the time, and it limited the types of roles that Wong was able to play. So you can understand why some people think that she should have used her platform to speak out against racism and discrimination. But despite the challenges she faced, Wong became one of the most popular movie stars of her day, appearing in dozens of films and helping to break down some of the barriers for Asian Americans in Hollywood. But now let's talk about that weird footnote I mentioned earlier. In 1934, Anna May Wong was nominated for the Actress of the Year award by the National Academy of Motion Picture, now known as the Oscars. But there was another Chinese-American actress nominated that year, a white actress named Anna Sten. Now you're probably wondering, wait, if Anna May Wong was Chinese-American, then how was another Chinese-American actress white? Well, here's where things get really interesting. You see, Anna Sten was born in China but immigrated to the United States when she was 17 years old. After graduating from Smith College in Massachusetts, she began working as a journalist and later as an actress. So far, so good. But here's where things get weird. When Anna Sten came to the U.S., she did not identify as Chinese American. Instead, she identified as Russian. Why, you ask? Well, she was raised in Russia. You see, when she was 10 years old, her family moved to Harbin in northeastern China, which at the time was a part of Russia. They lived there for 6 years before moving back to Russia. So Sten identified as Russian. Now, you might be thinking, wait, if she was born in China, then shouldn't she identify as Chinese? Well, not necessarily. You see, identity is complex, and there are many factors that influence how we see ourselves. For example, if you were born in the United States to Korean parents, you might identify as Korean American or Pan-Asian or even just American. It's totally up to you and no one else. There's no right or wrong way to do it. So back in 1934, Anna Sten identified as Russian, not Chinese. And since she was technically a white Russian, she didn't have to deal with the same kind of racism and discrimination that Anna May Wong did. So when she was nominated for the Actress of the Year award, she was nominated in the white category, not the Asian category. If she had identified as Chinese, she would have been nominated in the Asian category. And since there were no other Asian nominees that year, she would have definitely won. But since she identified as white, she was eligible for the white category and ended up losing to another white actress named Claudette Colbert. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't she just identify as Chinese? Well, we don't know. Maybe she felt that she didn't have a strong enough connection to China, or maybe she felt that she was too Americanized to identify as Chinese. Or maybe she just didn't want to be labeled as a minority. Whatever the reason, she identified as white, and that's how she was treated. This is a weird footnote in history, but it is important to remember that identity is complex and that people may not always identify the way that we expect them to. Just because someone is born in a certain place or has a certain ancestry doesn't mean that they identify that way. So in 1934, 2 Chinese American actresses were nominated for the Actress of the Year award. One was white and one was Chinese. But only one could win. Some people might say that Anna May Wong should have been the one to win because she was Chinese and she was nominated in the white category. But others might say that Anna Stein should have been the one to win because she was born in China and identified as white. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because both of them lost to a white actress. This goes to show that the entertainment industry has a long history of racism and discrimination against minorities, even those who are considered successful. But it is also important to remember that identity is complex and that not everyone will identify the way that we expect them to. Both of these women were talented actresses who made significant contributions to the film industry. And their stories deserve to be told. But I still think it would have been cool if Anna May Wong had won the award. But it's not all bad news. After she died in 1961, the state of California issued an apology for the decades of anti-Asian discrimination, including the Chinese Exclusion Act. In addition, in 2019, Anna May Wong was finally given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, so better late than never, right? If you like this video, check out my other videos about Asian Americans. Did you know Anna May Wong became an international star in the 1920s? But how exactly did she become famous? You're about to find out as we reveal how Anna May Wong became famous. At the age of 14, Anna May Wong was first cast as an extra in a production. Her big break didn't come until 3 years later when she was given a leading role. Although her breakthrough role came in a movie based on Madame Butterfly, it wasn't the only movie based on the story. In fact, there have been a lot of movies based on Madame Butterfly over the years. And this was what made Anna May Wong decide to audition for the role. This was because she had seen many actresses play the role and she felt that she could do it better than them. And so she went for the audition. But before we continue, be sure to stay tuned for more videos like this one. Also, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy. Now let's get back to the story. Wong's film career officially began when a casting call went out for Chinese women for the silent film The Red Lantern 1919, directed by Albert Kapolany. She carried a lantern in one of the film's scenes, but she was not mentioned in the movie credits. And even though her name was not in the credits, she still had a few lines in the movie. As a matter of fact, this was the only line that she had in the entire movie. She said, "All right, I will bring you some water." The film is set in China and is based on the novel The Red Lantern by Anna Catherine Green. It tells the story of a young English girl named Ruth Taylor who goes missing while traveling through China with her tutor, Lionel Graham. Graham becomes embroiled in a mystery involving opium smugglers and a mysterious Chinese woman known only as the Lady in Red. In the end, it is revealed that Ruth has been kidnapped by a member of the gang, but she is eventually rescued. It might seem quite odd for Anna May Wong to land a role in such a movie considering that she was an American. However, it should be noted that she had already acted in several Chinese films before landing this role. But this time around, she did not just appear as an extra in the movie. In fact, she was a leading lady in the movie. After appearing in several other productions, Wong landed her first leading role in the film, The Toll of the Sea 1922. This movie was notable because it was the first feature film ever made in the two-strip Technicolor process. The film was based on the opera Madame Butterfly. In the melodrama, Wong played the part of Lotus Flower, a Chinese woman who rescues an American man floating in the sea after his boat capsizes. The man is a former lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, Lieutenant Joseph Cable. He was played by the actor Wallace Beatty. Later, it is discovered that they were sweethearts from long ago and they were very much in love. While the film was a huge success, it was also a controversial one. This was because it was the first Hollywood film to feature an interracial romance between a white American man and a Chinese woman. The romance is treated respectfully in the film, and there are no racial slurs or stereotypes. Despite the controversy, the film was praised for its beautiful cinematography and its strong performances. The film was produced by Jesse L. Lasky, who had founded Famous Players Film Company with Adolf Zucker. The company had a working agreement with Paramount Pictures, but it was absorbed by the latter in 1927. So technically speaking, The Toll of the Sea was a Paramount Pictures release. In those days, producers often put their names on the films they produced as a kind of quality stamp. This was in order to ensure that the studios knew that they had a good product on their hands. So when Jesse L. Lasky saw the final cut of The Toll of the Sea, he was confident that it was a quality film that would make money. And so he decided to slap his name on it. Little did he know that the film would be a huge success and that Anna May Wong would go on to become an international star. Madame Butterfly was an opera by Giacomo Puccini that premiered in 1904. The plot is based on the 1900 French play Madame Butterfly by David Belasco and John Luther Long. It is set in Nagasaki, Japan, and tells the story of a young Japanese woman named Cho-Cho-sen who falls in love with an American sailor. When he leaves her, she kills herself. The character of Cho-Cho-sen is one of the most famous in opera and has been played by some of the greatest sopranos of the 20th century. The most famous version of the opera is probably the one by Puccini. However, there have been several film adaptations of the opera. The first one was in 1915 and the most recent one was in 2005. There is also a 1996 version, which is not based on the opera but on the original play. Anna May Wong was born on January 3, 1905 in Los Angeles, California. Her parents were Ching-Chi Wong and John Yim. Her father was a laundry worker who had emigrated from China while her mother was born in the United States. Wong had two sisters and a brother. From an early age, she showed an interest in acting and would often perform for her family. In fact, she was already performing on the stage in San Francisco by the time she was 14. When Wong was 16, she attended a party hosted by the actress May Wong. At the party, she met a talent scout from Famous Players Film Company and was soon signed to a contract. This was how she started her journey in the movie industry. Anna May Wong was a trailblazer for Asian actors in Hollywood. She was the first Asian actress to achieve major success in America. And she did it at a time when there were very few opportunities for Asians in the film industry. She paved the way for future generations of Asian actors and actresses. Without Anna May Wong, it is unlikely that we would have seen the likes of Lucy Liu, Michelle Yeoh, and many others. You may have heard some of the other names that have been used to refer to Anna May Wong. Some people call her Anna May Wong Hao, while others call her Anna May Walker. Even though all these names have been used to refer to her, the correct name is Anna May Wong. There was no Walker in her name. And although she was sometimes referred to as Anna May Wong Hao, this was only done out of respect for her Chinese heritage. She preferred to be called Anna May Wong, and that is the name that we should all use when referring to her. The following year, she landed another leading role in the film The Thief of Baghdad 1924, which was an adaptation of the Arabian Nights tale. In the film, she played the role of a slave girl who falls in love with a thief. The film was a critical and commercial success and established Wong as a major star in Hollywood. In 1926, she starred in the film The Shanghai Gesture, which was based on the novel by Yakka Camus. The film was a big hit and cemented Wong's status as a Hollywood star. In the film, she played the role of a Chinese prostitute who sets out to avenge her sister's death. Despite her success in Hollywood, Wong was still struggling with typecasting. She was always being offered roles that were either prostitutes or slaves. She wanted to be taken seriously as an actress, but she was finding it difficult to break out of the roles that were being written for her. In 1930, she starred in the film Daughter of the Dragon, which was based on the life of Pearl Buck. In the film, she played the role of a Chinese woman who defies her arranged marriage in order to pursue a career in medicine. The film was a critical and commercial success and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Writing, Screenplay. In 1932, she starred in the film The World in a Glass, which was based on the novel by Aldous Huxley. In the film, she played the role of a Eurasian woman who was in love with a British officer. The film was a critical and commercial success and established Wong as one of the top stars in Hollywood. Over the course of her career, Anna May Wong appeared in more than 60 films. She was a true pioneer for Asian representation in Hollywood, and her work paved the way for future generations of Asian actors. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to stay tuned for more content like this.